Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the State of the Ark podcast. We had some technical difficulties this week. The power went out in the middle of our recording. So, luckily, we still have all or most of our A-cam footage, the wide angle. But we lost the first half of the podcast. We lost the footage from the close-up angles. So, we only have that one camera angle for this week. I apologize for that. You know, it's just another thing we have to have a contingency plan for if the power goes out and we lose footage because it becomes corrupted. That's something that we'll hopefully be able to, sidestep in the future. But yeah, that's the reason why we only have the one camera angle for this week. So apologize for that, and hopefully it won't happen again. Thanks, everybody. Today, we played, I guess last time we left off right when the Goliath got shot down. And crashed into the Yggdrasil 2. and
no damage to the Yggdrasil 2. I would assume the Goliath's blown up, but the Yggdrasil 2 is fine.
Seems fine. Not really much of an explanation for how that happened.
Usually the bigger ship would be the one that suffers less damage.
Yes.
But,
however, Fei and Elly were separated. They're kind of trapped on like a abandoned broken frigate thing that's floating out in the middle of the ocean.
It's just like a square. It's like a block.
Yeah. And they only have rations enough for a couple of days. Yes. And have to start fishing to survive.
Now, this is the weirdest thing. So they're like, we only have so much food, and we only have 2 days worth of food. Elly doesn't seem worried about that.
No.
Because we're like, we gotta catch some fish. So Fei just jumps in the water, and it's the funniest scene ever. That fish is hopping, and he's jumping around trying to catch it.
Oh, son of a... Like, trying to grab it.
And Elly is like, Fei, stop doing this. Everything's fine. But I don't get where she comes off saying that, other than she had some, like, secret little rations packed away, like in her belt or something.
I don't know if it's so much that she's not concerned about their survival as it is that she's just preoccupied with other things that are a little more important on her mind at this moment.
At the moment.
Than catching a fish.
But she's like telling him not to catch the fish, though. She's like, don't catch it. And then he catches it, and she's like, don't eat it.
She also thinks they're going to get sick eating it or whatever.
She has a point, but I'm just saying, they're stuck at sea. Like, who knows what's going to happen. Don't tell the person trying to fish to stop fishing.
But it kind of cuts back and forth here. We go to Rico and Bart and Saitan for a bit, and we'll come back to Elly and Fei for a bit, and so we get a few cuts back and forth. But the notes that I wrote down are, it's funny how Rico, well, even Fei later on, don't seem to realize that it was Bart who shot them down.
I know, and it does come out eventually.
Yes.
But yeah, initially they're just like, man, that was crazy, something happened.
I understand why Rico wouldn't know, especially, I guess, if they didn't see the Yggdrasil.
Yeah, they just detected.
But even had they seen that, Rico doesn't know who Bart is. So they just end up getting rescued by this submarine, and he's like going to meet the guy who saved them. And then Bart essentially or I guess he kind of inadvertently lets it out that he used Bart missiles on them and shot them down. And he's and Rico.
I love Bart missiles.
Rico does not like that, so it's kind of a humorous scene. He like jumps on him like, I won't forgive you so easily, and starts like beating him up.
Yeah,
that's what Rico does. But then we cut back to Fei and Elly, and they see the same object flying in the sky,
the UFO looking thing, right?
That he saw in the desert.
Yeah.
And they finally clarify now what that is.
Yes.
That's actually Shavat, which is another flying city.
And Elly, the way Elly mentions it, Elly says, we don't really contact them. We don't have much to do with them.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
So there's another super highly advanced groups of people that are traveling around doing stuff that Solaris has no control over. Possibly their technology might even surpass Solaris's. I don't know, but they've got a force field and they're like floating around like UFO stuff. So it's like the Solarians don't, from what we've heard of the Gazelle ministry, they don't seem to be concerned with these Shavat people just floating around all the time, going everywhere back and forth, seemingly possessing very superior technology. And they're just like, whatevs. All we care about is the lambs and our stuff. That's
we will soon learn a lot more about Solaris and Shavat's history and their I guess, relations with each other soon. So
Okay.
won't dive into that just yet. But yes, at this point, it's like Shavat's a total mystery. However,
but we did get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing here.
Wise Man did
Yes.
tell Fei before leaving
Yeah.
the battling arena and everything that his father had been in the military of Shavat.
Yeah.
And so, and he was kind of saying, "Hey, are you going to go there? You know, if you escape, are you going to go to Shavat?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not. We got other things that we're worried about right now. But like, yeah, I suppose if there's time,
Sure.
and if it like made sense, yeah, I would like to go there and find out what my origins
And
are."
also, what is it, and how do you get there?
Yes,
That's probably the biggest question. Because
Yes.
Elly
Elly
talks
does not
about it.
know how to get
No,
there.
because she's like, it's like a country. There's this little floating thing is a country,
yeah,
and it's just floating around.
yep. And
That's interesting.
it typically kind of goes around in what's called, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, it's a weird word, Akavi, which
Yes.
is the region that we spend most of our time in during this particular play session that we did.
Yeah.
It's that like southwestern continent / archipelago that like the Ethos headquarters is at, and the orphanage, Billy's orphanage, and
Yeah,
all that
just
stuff
the
down in
islands
kind of the
kind of, yeah.
southwest region. That's the Akavi region. And Shavat, she's saying, spends most of its time kind of surveying that place. But every time,
Yeah.
like maybe an important mission comes up, it'll come over here to Ignis, which is where it flew low. And,
Yes, and it was really low.
And Fei saw it there in the desert.
Yeah, because Fei mentions, Fei's like, whoa, it's way at a different altitude than when I saw it. And Elly's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's funny. It's usually, whenever I see it, that's
Yeah.
where it usually is.
yeah.
So that shows that it was actually flying lower when Fei
Right.
first saw it. That's interesting.
And going into a region it doesn't typically go into. So, anyways, that's Shavat. We will learn a lot more
Shavat.
about Shavat soon. So then it cuts away from that scene. I really like the transition there, though, because it looks up into the sky at
Yes.
Shavat, and then
Yes.
it pans down, and you're seeing Bart looking up at the same thing. So
Yeah,
it's showing they're in a pretty close proximity in the
yeah.
ocean, but when you're in the ocean, it's like you're a mile or two off.
You
you're
assume you're
not
just in
gonna
the
see,
middle. Yeah. Exactly.
you know, where they're at. That's why it's hard to find people who are lost at
Exactly.
sea, right? It's just so vast. And so, you know, Bart's nearby, he's seeing Shavat in the sky. Really nice transition. They do a beautiful job at that throughout the game, those transitions to different scenes with the camera. But here, Bart is encouraged again, go apologize, please, to the people you shot down. Make it up to them. And he struggles with apologizing. I like that that's a characterization or an aspect of his character that's been really consistent. He really struggles with it. So you go and find Saitan and Rico. I guess you can do, I don't know if you have to go to Saitan first, probably do, but he's in like the hangar where they keep all of the gears at. And he has a question, Bart does, specifically for Saitan. He asks him, you know, this Yggdrasil 2 that we're on now, you know, my father or grandfather, whoever it was, told me that there was another one, right? So
Right.
we knew that it existed. But there's a different crest on this vessel that I don't recognize.
Yeah.
He's like, do you know whose crest that is? Because that's not the Fatima royal crest. That's not the Ave, you know, insignia. Like, whose is that? And this is where Saitan tells him that that's actually Shavat's insignia, Shavat's crest.
Interesting.
So the technology that is used in the Yggdrasil submarines came from Shavat originally. And so Bart gets curious about that. He's like, oh man, I'd really like to, you know, meet the people who built this. And then Saitan kind of mentions underhandedly, actually, they may be closer to you than you suspect.
Yeah, almost implying that like he's the one that built it.
Maybe.
Like
Maybe.
I don't know how else to read that.
Right, like somebody or
But
maybe,
Satan
you know.
doesn't seem that old to me though, and
Sure.
I don't know when these things were built. and I
Right.
don't know really how old he is, but it seems like 30-ish maybe.
Right. He's 29.
29?
Saitan's 29.
Okay.
I was talking about this
if
with...
he built the Yggdrasil, it would have been a really long time ago.
Sure. Anyways, he says, Shavat may be closer than you actually suspect. And Bart's like, hey, what was that? Like, and he's like, don't worry about it.
Nothing.
Go find Rico. You just be careful because you might get more than a bruise this time.
Right, yeah.
And I really liked that next interaction with Rico. You go find him, he's next to his gear, and he's really fascinated by the fact that the engineers on this vessel are like so good with gears. He's like, man, I thought only me and Fei were the ones who could be this good at piloting gears. Because he's been stuck in D block his whole life. He's never been outside in the world. So he doesn't know that there are like legit gear pilots out there, and all this stuff he's not aware of. And so, Bart's trying to apologize, and Rico's like, what are you apologizing for? I already took care of that before.
It was a funny situation, too. It was funny that, like, the way the apology works out, Rico it's like you already paid for what you did.
Yes.
Right? You've already suffered the consequences.
It's over.
We're cool now. We can be friends now.
I don't dwell on the past. It's over now.
I love that. I almost like when you're living in a prison next to people who you're constantly fighting with, you have to have that type of... At some point, you can't hold a grudge. You're both just going to end up killing each other. You have to be near each other. You have to see each other. You have to, like, learn to figure things out, right?
Yeah. And it's definitely, I believe that Rico is a type 8 on the Enneagram of personality. It fits right in with that. It's like they definitely get real hot and they'll seek vengeance and all that stuff. But like once it's done, they can kind of just let it go. Yeah. And it's over, like it's taken care of. It's like in the past. I'm not focused on that anymore. Like we're done with that now.
That's funny.
It's already over. So I really like that that little interaction between the two of them. Good stuff. So then we cut back to Fei and Elly again as they're sitting on the deck of the frigate. It's at nighttime. So the shot kind of starts out in the ocean and it kind of pulls back.
It does. I couldn't tell what was happening at first because it's really dark, right?
Yes.
And you got that blue kind of fractal, it's supposed to, it's the water and you can tell because you hear the sound, but it also just looks kind of hypnotizing a little bit, and it's just waving. It's just kind of moving there, just kind of chilling, and you're reading quite a bit of text before the camera ever pulls back to actually reveal them. And my initial thought was like, oh no, Disc 2 has begun. I'm just reading text, watching this like psychedelic background, and does it start now?
Is this where it starts?
No. Quite. As soon as the camera pulled back, I was like, oh, that was actually a nice touch. That was nice. I think he held it on the ocean a little too long. Yeah. And a lot of it was me getting a little nervous because I'm aware of how the Disc 2 kind of goes within this game, but it was actually really artistic and really well done. I liked it a lot.
And I love the dialogue here.
Yes, me
Fei
too.
And Elly. It's a fantastic scene for like a number of reasons.
Some notes here, yeah.
Why don't you read some of yours?
So my initial one, I don't have the whole conversation. Did you want to go through the whole thing or just a few excerpts?
I copied the parts, but not the whole thing. Yeah.
So I copied a few parts specifically, but Elly and Fei, they're just kind of having a heart-to-heart, just talk about everything. Because Ellie's saying like, hey, I think I'm going to leave the military and just try to like get on with my life in a different way, do something else that I enjoy doing instead of this, which I don't enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And Fei's like, are you sure you can go back? And she's like, no one knows what I did. Mm-hmm. And that, that ends up not being true pretty soon here. But as far as she knows, nobody knows what happened. But as they're talking and as they're kind of exploring each other's weaknesses in general, just like talking each other through just life and just, I don't know, it's a really, really genuine chat, I think. Elly tells Fei, she says, it's okay not to feel whole. And the reason I even bring this up isn't because I necessarily even know what this means, but you keep bringing up that being whole and not being not whole is really important to Fei.
Fragmentation.
Yes.
So we talked about Enneagram Type 9, right? Which is Fei's personality. Their biggest fear is fragmentation. And what they seek for is wholeness.
Clearly,
wholeness is what they want.
That's what they want, and we see that, in pieces throughout the game so far. We've seen parts of that kind of show up, and he's really upset with how fragmented his life is, and he doesn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And so here's Elly saying, "It's okay not to feel whole, even if you only feel partly complete. If you repeat that enough, eventually you will be whole." And a part is better than zero, right?
Yeah.
So you're not whole, but you have all the parts, right?
Yes.
So Just connect these two. It's like you're doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. Just do this one. Just connect these two. That's easy enough. You don't have to do all 1,000 pieces. You don't have to worry about the whole thing.
Right.
Just put these two pieces together.
Yes.
Okay, you okay? You did that? Okay, now try and put another one in.
Right.
All right, cool. Okay, don't worry about anything else. Okay, now one more,
Yeah.
and you eventually kind of fill it out. A little bit of that sentence, though, even if you only feel partly complete, if you repeat that enough, eventually it will be whole. I don't know to what extent the ideas of like alchemy and stuff kind of enter within the game. I get some sense that it's maybe like loosely connected, but that is kind of the idea of like hermetic alchemy, is that you just slowly refine yourself. Like the idea of alchemy is you're turning lead to gold or something like that, right? But the process of actually doing that, despite you failing and never actually being able to do it, is something that reflects on yourself, and you're actually purifying yourself, and you're becoming a more whole and a more complete, perfect kind of person.
The idea of the refiner's fire.
Exactly, yeah, and that's kind of an alchemic imagery there a little bit, as they continue with this crazy goal that they have of purifying something to its purest form. And I get that from Elly a little bit as she's bringing that up.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to bring this up because I feel like the game has done a really great job with consistent, what's the word? Like representation of the characters within their enneagram types. Particularly when it comes to like why they're acting the way they are under stress and pressure versus when they're allowing their true selves to come out, right? So Elly is a type 2, which is the helper or the giver, right? Now, we also talked about how, I'm trying to remember the term, but like their stress disintegration, I guess is the term, right? They'll kind of like shift over, the types are connected to each other, right?
Yeah.
So like a type 9, when under stress or when under duress, when in their stress integration, will move towards a type 6.
Okay.
Right.
The negative attributes of a 6. Yeah.
When their security integration, they'll move towards a 3.
The positive,
so the type 2, which is the helper, right? Their basic fear is being unloved. Their basic desire to feel love, right? So their temptation is to deny their own needs. Their ego fixation is flattery. Their holy idea is freedom and will. Freedom, a big one there. That's something that Elly feels, she feels trapped. She feels she's not free.
Right, because she brought up last time with Fei that, you're so free, and I'm not.
Yeah, despite all the stuff that you've gone through and the traumatic nature of it, at least you're free. I'm not free.
Yeah, you can determine your own future, so to speak.
So throughout the beginning of the game, the whole time, she's been under this stress disintegration kind of like portion of her personality, which goes towards a type 8, which is the type that Rico is, right?
Oh, yeah.
So she would be really aggressive and she would act out that way.
That's very accurate. Yeah,
but that's not who she really is.
Right.
That's who she is in the stress disintegration process. And under all the pressure of the Solaris society, her place as an element or as a commander in the Gebler.
And her father.
Her father being part of the military, not knowing where she's going to belong if she were to actually go against all of this, even though in her heart she knows it's right to do that. All of that pressure was pushing her towards type 8, and that's why she was so aggressive. She's holding the gun on Fei in the beginning and acting out, and when she takes the drive, she gets really really kind of freaky and aggressive, and she's talking about die in all these horrible ways, and so she was really moving towards that type 8. This is the first time, I believe, well, partly when she tried to self-sacrifice to save Nortun's citizens, when she tried to stop the ship from crashing. But right here in this scene, we're really seeing the true form of her personality come out, the helper and the giver part, right? That type 2 personality is really shining through here. And even Fei reveals some things about himself that are really open, true parts of the type 9 personality. They're really coming into their own as characters. And that has happened by degrees. They've had to be challenged by the other back and forth multiple times. They've had to then go back and face, people they're allied with, and then come back together and like, once again, like challenge each other. No, this is not you. And yes, this is not you. Like, I feel like I've known you longer than we really have.
Which they bring up again here. But yeah.
But I really loved the scene because it's really bringing those characters around. It's like you've had this really steady progression and pressure and conflict that's driving them, and now they're finally coming into growing into who they really are together. And it's a really beautiful scene.
Well, I like that. You've got also the, she's the helper and the giver, right?
Yeah.
And one of the scenes, I don't know if you put a note on this here, but one of the parts of this whole conversation they have that actually stood out to me quite a bit is when she gives him the food.
Yes.
Because she says a thing or two there, and I can read that right here.
Yeah.
So she's like, here, I've got some of these military rations. You can have one if you want. And he doesn't like it, but like they have no food, and she's just being nice with what she has. And so he eats it, and she's like, you hated that, didn't you? And he's like, no, it was good. It was really good. And it was like crumbly and just not how it should be. But then she says, you forced yourself to eat those rations, didn't you? For me to survive, it would have been better to not share it. But watching you eat it, even though it tasted bad, comforted me. I felt glad that I shared it with you. It made me feel a little bit better. Yeah. So that goes along with the giver personality, right? Like it's not just that she gave things, so now she's the giver personality, because everyone gives stuff. It's how she feels when she gives stuff. And she's like so happy. Like she gave like a not great gift, but it was all that she had to somebody that she cared about, and it made her feel like super, super good, and she liked it a lot. Now, so there's an anthropological principle talking about sharing food, and this is one of the first things that got me like really excited about anthropology back when I took an anthropology class back at university, was that when you give somebody food that was meant for you, there's like a part of your soul that is like in the food and that transfers to the other person. So like in you can think back thousands of years to where, let's say that this is just a typical story. There's a man that goes out to hunt, and then he comes back from hunting. He's got a nice thing that he carried, and then the women had made some food for the hunters when they returned, and they want a specific hunter to eat their food. Like, it's not like, because it's just food, who cares? But when the hunter comes and you offer the food, and then the hunter takes your food and eats it, it's as if you're sharing, your souls are like meeting in that moment. It's as if he's partaking of your soul, because when you make the food or when you share the food, then you are like offering up a part of you up along. It's not just the food, it's a part of you. And to accept that and to eat it is like it's a bonding experience of sorts, right? And you can see that. That's just true. It's true. So anthropology takes things that are from all different tribes all around the world and finds the commonalities. And this is a commonality between all the different tribes and everybody. That when you make something for someone and they like it, it makes you just like through the roof. And I don't know why, because food's one of the important things of the world, of life, right? But the being food here and understanding that when Elly gives something, it's not just the gift. It's like more than that. Yeah. And anthropology helps to explain like what that means.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I wrote down a couple of lines that I want to go through in particular for Fei here. He says, constantly drifting. Sounds like me right now. I've just been drifting around being led by circumstances. And she tries to say, like, what do you mean? Like, you've been helping Bart, and you've been helping me, and so she's trying to really help him. She's really coming into that type 2 personality. Yeah. She's like all in on trying to like help him feel better.
And he's showing some vulnerability, and so she's kind of like latching onto that.
Yeah. And so he says, probably deep inside, I'm not really trying to help. Somehow I get the feeling that all I've done, I did because I wanted to be needed. That if I did something for them, then maybe I'd have a place to belong. There's a side of me that comforts itself like that. Now, I haven't done enough sort of research into this Enneagram types to like find out where I would lie on this.
Oh yeah.
I've actually been doing more into so your wife and
Yes.
my girlfriend, and they're really into personality. And even Bryce, when he was here, he's really into that too. So
yeah.
they were all doing Myers-Briggs and some other things.
Yeah.
So
my wife had me take the Enneagram just like last weekend.
Oh, nice.
I'm the investigator.
The investigator? What type is that?
I can't remember. It's a 5. I don't know what it means completely. My wife does. But I'm a 5.
Yeah, I don't know where I would fall on this.
And then a 9. I'm a 5 and a 9. The 9 was my next highest score.
Oh, the 9 was the next highest one.
Peacemaker,
Yeah, so, but I really, really relate to this idea that Fei is being honest about in himself.
Yeah.
This idea that, like, the reason I gave so much energy to help other people was really because I just feel a need to be needed by them. And if they need me enough, then I'll have a place to belong. It's hard to explain that, and it's kind of an embarrassing thing when you realize that's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think that in our society, like, self-sacrifice is sort of held as an ideal that's like something people should do, right? You should give up, you should be unselfish,
Yes.
you should be, you should put others before yourself. This is something
very
we're
much
taught since we're young. And so I think that for people like this, right, to realize that the reason that they're really doing it is actually a selfish reason is a hard thing to admit.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to especially like confess to a person who is a type 2 who really is that way.
Yeah.
Who really does want to or derives happiness from helping other people. And this type doesn't actually get happiness that way. They just think that they will, if I do this, then I'll have a place to belong. Then the thing that I want,
I see the connection you made. That's interesting. And that's these two characters fit really well together in that sense.
Yeah.
She says that herself too, by the way. She says that it's selfish the way that she feels good when she gives someone else food.
Yeah.
And they mention that, and she, like, oh, he's like, so it's a selfish thing? She's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good, but I do it anyways.
And so he says, that doesn't mean I don't want to help, but that doesn't mean I really want to help either. It feels contradictory, but I so get what he means by that.
But it's because he's so conflicted. It's because he's neutral, but he acts as though he does care, but in his mind he actually can't rationalize a reason to care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And he goes on to say, it might not be nothing, but it sure isn't the whole either. And then the whole is in quotation. So he's really concerned about wholeness, right? That's his personality types really, like, they want wholeness, psychological, spiritual wholeness. They feel fragmented. They're scared of feeling like they're incomplete.
Yeah.
So Elly responds to that and says, it's okay not to feel whole. And I think you read this part. Even if you only feel partly complete, if you repeat that enough, eventually it'll be whole. A part is better than 0. Don't be too hard on yourself. Everyone wants to be needed at times. All of us want to give something inside ourselves to others to be accepted. But little by little, you learn about your own happiness. And someday, you are able to share that important part of you with someone else. Someday. So she's trying to break it down for him, like, yeah, this might be where you're at right now. It's not nothing.
Right.
It's a process.
Yes.
And that process will eventually, if you keep pressing forward, will reveal to you what it is that brings you happiness. You will find what that wholeness means for you. And you'll eventually be able to share that whole, complete part of yourself with someone else. But you just got to keep pushing every day, and it's okay that right now you aren't there yet. So just a really beautiful moment shared between the two of them as they are stranded out in the ocean.
Yeah.
And we're seeing these characters, one thing that I've talked about with Final Fantasy in the past is that I don't think that there's a single Final Fantasy game that tried a romance that I really felt did a great job at it. It's like,
I would agree with that.
there were parts of it that I liked, parts of it that I didn't, and when it all came together, I didn't really feel like that romance worked for me.
Right. In some ways, I feel like these RPG games are a little too afraid to stray too much into the romantic because their target audience is younger
people.
And
but
I
also
know
they have this whole plot that they would rather stay focused on and not get too far off track.
The romance is a side thing
that was
they don't want, because
Yoko Taro spoke specifically on that about main character's relationship with Kaine.
Yes.
It was like, yes, it exists, but I didn't want to focus on that because that would take away, in his opinion, from his sort of obsessive pursuit of saving Yona.
Yeah.
And that's got to be the most important thing to the character, and that's what we got to focus on in the story. And so he put it there as like a sub thing with a lot of subtext, but he didn't really like explore that fully.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of other RPGs do that too, where it's like, here's a thing and it's kind of there, but let's get back to the plot again. Let's keep driving that forward. And here, they allow the characters to really explore that romantic subplot.
Yeah.
And I think it's done very beautifully, in a way that is, for me, the most convincing of any JRPG romance I've ever seen.
Sure. And it's very, it's just a more mature kind of way to deal with this kind of stuff.
Yes, for
Which
sure.
I could say that's true probably about this whole game.
Yeah.
It just feels a step in maturity, a step above a lot of the other JRPGs of the time. Which those other JRPGs I freaking loved.
Yes.
I think you agree with me. They're great. It's
They're
just
amazing.
the focus is different, and then they're made for a possibly slightly younger audience, but that's fine.
So at the end of this conversation, though, she ends up saying, "It just felt as though I've told you this same thing a long time ago."
Yes.
And it must be my imagination. Now, if
I
any
had
character,
that was my next one,
if any character in anything says that was just my imagination, it wasn't. It was real,
wasn't.
for sure. It definitely is real.
Yeah.
This
is how all
definitely
stories work.
important.
It's along the lines of, the legend speaks. Oh, but that's just a fairy tale.
Yep.
It's like, nope, that's true. That's
Definitely
true. You have to believe it.
Definitely true. So, anyways, this is just another example where they feel like they've met before, even though they just recently met and they know each other deeply. And how does that make any sense? Must be my imagination. It's not. It's not your imagination. We'll learn more about it as we go on. Anyways, great scene. Really loved that scene. That was my favorite part of this particular play session we had.
Me too.
I took the most notes there. I just thought it was beautifully done and sets up a lot of great stuff coming up too. Okay, so they end up getting saved by a ship / frigate. I don't know what type of ship you would call it.
It almost looks like an oil rig.
Like an oil rig, but it's moving.
Yeah, and then it's just picking up trash from the ocean, it seems.
It's the Thames.
Yes.
Really love the theme music of the Thames, the feeling of that ship. Some really great examples of the charming humor that I love in these games we grew up with.
I agree.
I just love it all. The whole thing is just fun to explore, fun to talk to people. The design is cool. It's a great little sequence. Yeah. But so they have a little gag that the captain of the ship does, right? Where
he almost seems kind of half drunk, like most of the time.
And he mentions that's why they have the beer hall right next to next to the to the cab, not the cab, the where they
I can't remember, but there's like 8 levels. Yeah, the bridge. There's like 8 levels to this place.
So right next to the bridge is the beer hall, and he even tells you like, I don't want my guys being all stressed out. Like we gotta like loosen up in order to do our jobs or something like that.
It's so funny.
Anyways, he has a little gag where he'll turn towards the camera and talk about being, I am a man of the sea, and he goes to the 3 cameras. Now, there's a little kid.
It's very funny.
There's a little kid on the deck when you first get there, and the dolphin man, who is Hans, by the way. So we have Hans and Franz.
Oh,
the
yes.
2 dolphins,
and they're
right?
both dolphins, yeah.
Which is obviously a reference. But
exactly.
There's a little kid right there who tries to do this. He tries to say, I am a man of, but then he loses the camera, and he's kind of looking around. I need more practice.
No, I remember that. Yeah, it's so funny, so funny.
Because he gets the first 2, and then on the third one, he turns the wrong way, and he's like looking around, like, where's the camera at? Oh, there it is. Oh, man, I need more practice.
Yeah.
Freaking hilarious.
It's very funny.
Loved that. Anyways, there's a lot of, like, treasure you can get, exploring the levels. I really loved how there's, like, a drunken sailor in the screw elevator.
And he's like, please don't turn it. Please don't spin it.
Don't spin it anymore, please. And you go, and then you go to the next level and start spinning. He's like, oh, I told you not to spin it. It's just like bleeds so much personality.
Yeah,
this
very
Thames,
funny.
Location that you can explore. All the NPCs are great. There's treasure here that you can find. Lots of cool stuff going on. But eventually you make your way up to the cabin and you talk to the captain. And he informs you that the Thames, their ship, is currently on a job from the Ethos. It's really important that they're there to salvage something from the sea.
Yeah.
So another kind
That's
of
why
hint,
they're just there picking up all the trash
right,
they can find.
that the Ethos is looking for something out there in the ocean.
Yeah, somewhere.
And they're trying to salvage something down there. So that's the important part that you're supposed to, like what's the Ethos up to? But I love that I am a man of the sea thing.
It's very
really funny.
Did you find Joe on this ship?
Big Joe, he's on the
Yes.
Thames?
No, I can't remember if he's on the Thames or if he's at...
I think he's
Did
on...
you find him during this playthrough?
I think he's on the deck of the Yggdrasil when it's docked.
That's where
at
it
the
was.
Thames.
That's
Yeah.
where it was. Okay, but it's like kind of there.
Yes, and he's all trying to speak... He's
So
trying
this
to speak,
comes later. This comes later.
Trying to speak... He's like speaking Spanish to
Mi
you.
amore, yeah, he's... Yeah.
As you're interrupting
Because he's
him.
with a girl.
Well, you can play him in cards. Did you play this card game?
I did. That's what I was getting at.
Okay, let's talk about the card game.
Can't. Okay, it's weird, but I can't believe they fit a card game into this game. This Square Enix had just an obsession with this in the late '90s. Every game just was a card game, and I think it came with like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and trading cards, and it was just becoming a more fun thing at the time, and so they were incorporating it into their games.
Yeah.
But I guess this game came out before FF8, right? And before FF9.
Before FF8, yes.
Yeah.
So it was in between FF7 and FF8.
Yeah, but this game may have had the first card game, because I don't think 7 had one, right?
No, it didn't.
So Xenogears put out this card game, and I don't know, it's weird. It's kind of like a speed thing. You just gotta like...
Well, the game is called Speed, I think. The card game is
that
called
what it's
Speed.
technically?
I think
Is
it's
this a
called
real
Speed.
game?
I don't know if it's a real game.
Oh, okay, but in the
Maybe
game
it is.
it's called
Maybe
Speed.
it is,
yeah.
but the game is called Speed.
It took Joe a while to explain it, and I was excited to play it at first.
Oh, did
'cause
you
I
have,
was like,
did you have Joe give you the tutorial for
Yes.
that? Oh.
Joe was the one
Oh,
for
wow,
me.
okay. 'Cause
Was it not
there's,
for you?
There's different people on the Thames who you can play. There's like a little kid, and then there's like a guy up in the beer hall, and then there's a woman on the deck.
I did play one other person, yeah. But after my
you
initial
talked to
tutorial
Joe.
was Joe.
Interesting.
So he explained, and it took a while. And as he was explaining it, I got less and less excited about how this game was going to work. And I decided, because I beat him and I got a long black coat or whatever, and I was like, okay, whatever. And that I kind of decided I didn't really care to play this game anymore.
Yeah,
I did it one other time and I lost, and I was just like, I don't know.
This is what I'll say about it. It's simple enough. Right, it's like you're trying to get rid of your decks. The goal is to get rid of all your cards
Yeah,
first.
you got like 26 cards or something.
So you have a hand of 4 cards, and your opponent will have a hand of 4 cards, and there are 2 cards in the middle.
Yeah.
And you can
And
either
you can play either one.
Yeah, you can send a card to the right or left.
Yeah.
But it just has to be in numerical order. So if there's a 4 down, you can put a 5 on top of it,
Or a 3.
or you can go down
Yeah.
to a 3. And so you're just placing them as fast as you can until your hand is gone. And if you get to a point where, I can't play anything, and the opponent can't play anything, then they'll just take a card from the deck, flip it over, and then see how far you can play until you have to stop again.
Yes.
Then 1, 2, bam, put them down, and whoever gets rid of all their cards first wins. It's a very simple game. It is really freaking hard.
Yeah.
Because the computer is unbelievably fast.
When I saw, like, when I was getting the concept of the game, and I was like, okay, but they're gonna like be good about it, right? Like they're not just gonna go crazy.
They're just like, and Joe is one of the easier. There's the woman
Well, I was able
on
to
the
beat
deck.
Joe, and it was probably the woman I played. I can't remember who it was, but I was like, I'm just done.
They're so
I don't know that this
fast.
game is gonna be
They're
very
so
worth
fast.
it.
So here's what you can do, and this is what I suggest for anyone who wants to play Speed and win the rewards from doing it.
Yeah.
Abuse the pause button, because you can press pause, the
And
start
just look
button,
at everything.
and look at the cards as they're coming out. And you, an 8 is coming, or a queen is coming. Okay,
Great.
where am I at?
Great.
Where is the opponent at? Oh, he's standing on his king. He's definitely going to get that before me.
So don't worry about it.
So I'm not going to go
Do
for that. I'll
something
try to
else.
go to this one.
Yeah.
And then if he plays a king, I can use this right after that. Abuse the pause button, because these characters, these computer-controlled characters, are so freaking fast. It's like impossible. I could not keep up with it playing normally. I had to pause all the time in order to win. So don't feel bad about doing that, particularly with the woman on the deck, because you have to beat 2 of the... so there's a kid down in the supply entrance who will play with you. And then there's a guy in like the corner of the beer hall who will play you. If you beat both of them, you can play the woman who's standing on top of the stacked boxes on the deck. And she is the hardest one. But if you beat her, she gives you a death blower accessory, which opens up more death blows for the gears. So it's something that's worth getting if you want to see some of those death blows.
Yeah.
But she's really hard to beat, even when you're pausing. She's too fast. So that's what I would recommend. But the rewards are worth getting by playing those people in the card game.
Well, cool.
In any case, that's the Thames. Thames is
I
fun.
thought it was going to be a collecting card game, and I was like, halfway through the game, you're introducing this to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't. This came before 8, before FF9. It was just a regular 52 card deck. It's nothing special. I don't know. I didn't really play it.
So as you're doing that, as you're talking to the captain, we cut to a scene between Dominia and a new character, Kelvina, I think her name is.
Oh yeah.
These are 2 of the current Elements members.
They're like underwater.
Yeah, they're underwater, and they're kind of searching for the Goliath, the wreckage of the Goliath. That's what they were sent there to do. And they pick up the sonar or the signature or something of the Yggdrasil. And this is when Dominia decides, like, oh, we're going to go after that because she knows how important it is to Ramsus. She's all about pleasing Ramsus.
Yeah.
She knows how distraught he is about Fei and that gear that's being held in that ship, and that's the one that has it. And so she's all gung-ho about, this has been such a common thing in the Gebler, breaking from orders to go pursue a personal goal or vendetta or something like that.
Yeah, it's a common thing, and you can see that within the way that these officers will treat the commanding officer, right? Where the grunts or whoever, the soldiers will treat the officers really poorly. Yeah. And it's like, what military ever functions this way? That's insane.
At least,
and there is no discipline.
At least in this case, Dominia does get some discipline from Miang, and we'll see that scene a little bit in a minute.
Yes, she does.
But Ramsus didn't seem to get disciplined by the Gazel Ministry.
No.
And all the other times this happened.
Well, and Elly, her group, they just would talk back to her, and she wouldn't even do anything about it.
Right. Kelvina is the one who's actually in command here, not Dominia, which I found interesting.
I thought Dominia would outrank everybody.
That's how it seems because of how dominant her personality
is. That's her personality,
is.
though, yeah.
But that's what Miang mentions later, is that Kelvina was supposed to be the one in command on that mission, and Dominia was not listening to her. And Kelvina was like, this is not our mission. Like, we're supposed to look for the Goliath or whatever. And she's like, no, I'm attacking the Yggdrasil. So anyways, you get a really short scene there where Dominia goes after the Yggdrasil.
She has a huge gear, by the way.
Yeah, it's like this underwater thing. I think they might have both been inside. I couldn't really tell because the cockpits looked separate. But Dominia tells Kelvina, give me, like, control of the vessel, basically. Yeah. She's like, give me the controls. So it almost sounded like maybe they were in the same thing, but I couldn't tell. Anyways, she goes after the Yggdrasil. She mentions specifically, like, this will never trouble the commander again. Will never trouble Ramsus again. So she's really intent on doing this for Ramsus. This is when we cut back to the Thames, and the Thames sort of picks this up or realizes that this is happening, that the Yggdrasil is being attacked, right?
Yeah.
So Fei and Elly, their gears have been repaired. They fly out to go and help. They meet up with Rico and Saitan.
Before that, though, the captain's just so funny. He's just like, there be people fight. I'm just doing a pirate voice because that's how I imagine it. But he's like, people are fighting over yonder on the sea. We should join the fight. Like, get your guns and let's just start shooting at whatever. Because I guess he doesn't like that they're fighting so close to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's going on here?
On top of that, he's like, our guests... They are friends with the people being attacked, so it's part of our code that we have to help them.
It seemed as though he was just going to shoot whoever. But then we bring
Yeah.
up, oh, we know them. He's like, oh, okay, then we'll shoot the other guys and we'll help you out. Yeah, because we're men of the sea. So yeah, anyways.
It's like part of their pirate or their code of men as men of the sea.
Yeah.
They're not pirates, but to help their guests.
To help their guests.
But
So
but
he
Hans
goes
continues
over-
to bring up like we are not equipped to fight these things at all.
Yes.
Your cannon you're talking about is
Yeah.
a piece of junk. Like we can take them over
Right.
there, we can repair the gears, but we're not getting involved in a fight. That's
So-
stupid.
They were fixing our gears, and
Yeah.
I presumably it was going to take a while.
Yeah.
But then Captain phones the.
You got 2 minutes.
He's like, He's like, hey, you're fixing their gears? Like, yeah, we're just fixing them. You got 2 minutes. And then he hangs up, and it's like, oh my gosh, what? So they freak out, and I guess they fix our gear 100% in 2 minutes because it's ready for us. And then we go out and help fight, and we stop Dominia. But so we go under the water. And it's like our whole party's there, but Ellie's there. And we don't know who's attacking the Yggdrasil yet, but Ellie shows up. And Ellie's just like, oh, nobody knows that I joined with you guys. And then, wait, that's Dominia. And Dominia
crap.
is so pissed.
Yeah,
she's like,
pissed.
you traitor. And she, is this where Ellie gets kidnapped? Was it here?
Well, Dominia ends up taking Ellie from after the fight's over. She takes her back.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the fight isn't. So she grabs Ellie and just takes her all the way back to Miang, basically, all the way back to the Solaris ship that she came from.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because it's like, oh my gosh, Ellie's screwed.
So you join Rico, you go down there and you fight Dominia, and she's like, even though you win in the game, you lose in the cutscene kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, we have to retreat. Or Kelvina's like, we have to retreat. He's like, no, I'm going to make sure we take Ellie. So
Yeah.
she does this attack and grabs her, flies off. Faye's like, no, Ellie. And so they come back and they're like, crap, reporting to Saitan. Ellie got taken back. What's going to happen? You're all concerned. And then when you cut back to Dominia, she's slapping Ellie's face and pulling a sword on her and basically threatening to execute her right there.
For being a traitor, yeah.
And this is where Miang steps in and protects Ellie. And I think I had a note here. Oh, right before they started fighting. Sorry, there's one thing I missed here. She and Ellie are talking to each other, right? And Ellie's trying to explain to her why, she thinks that the lambs and the shepherds are the same.
Yes.
And what Dominia says in response to that is, well, that's true, they are the same. The difference is in ability, and that those with ability should be the ones who have the ability, or who have the right, I guess, to rule or oppress those without ability. This is all the Ramsus philosophy.
Yes, I was going to say, this is Ramsus.
That he wanted to use to sort of restructure Solaris. Rather than having the class structure they currently have, he wanted to replace it with those with
more of a meritocracy.
Yeah, meritocracy. Those who show more promise and more ability go to the top, and those with less go to the bottom. So Dominia has bought into that 100%, and you can kind of see that with her dialogue there. But then she says something very important here. She mentions a rumor that Ellie was actually born of the lambs.
Yes.
Right? That she's not actually a pure-blooded Solarian.
And all rumors are true. It's just how it works.
So just something to remember for later, that Dominia seems to now be buying into this rumor that Ellie is not actually a pure-blooded
That she clearly didn't
Solarian.
before.
Yeah.
Because before she was being more respectful to Ellie.
Yes.
Now she buys into it because Ellie has done something that basically makes her, in Dominia's mind, this whole time you must have been a bad person. You must be one of those lambs.
Yep.
I got it. There was a rumor I heard once. It's true.
Yep.
Now it is true. But I don't know that, but it's a game, so it's true. But her rationale is just, oh my gosh, I hate Ellie now, and I need to reconcile the what's the word? The dissonance in my mind with who I thought you were with who you really are. Oh, you're a snake.
Yep.
You're one of the bad ones.
Yep.
And so she just jumped right to that. And she's kind of losing it.
Yeah, she looks like she's about to try to execute Ellie as a traitor before having any due process or anything like that.
Yes.
And so Miang steps in and is like, what are you doing? This is not how this works. Back off.
And really, really tells her off. But Dominia starts to kind of like talk back to Miang a little bit. And is just like, no, this is how it works. Like, what are you doing? Don't stand up for her.
Whose authority do you have to tell me this?
Which, now I don't know Miang's, I know Ramsus' position, but I don't know Miang's
seems to be
specific
some kind
position.
of supervisor or something.
Something like that.
Not supervisor.
To Ramsus, right? Advisor?
Advisor.
Yeah, not super, but yeah, advisor.
Ramsus.
Something like that.
But Dominia seems to think she doesn't have superiority over her. So I don't know for sure.
And she may be right in that sense, because Miang doesn't like pull a card or say, oh yeah, I'm your boss.
Right.
Miang just looks at her. And this crazy blue flash. Yeah, streaks. And Dominia just like is silent. And then she takes Elly and leaves. And Dominia says something to herself. I didn't write it down.
About her eyes.
Yeah, but it was like, what was that? Yeah, her eyes, just what was that? And that's it. And that's all we heard.
So Miang, all she had to do was look.
Yes.
And there's some kind of power.
She has some power.
Dominia felt like she couldn't stand up to her anymore.
Yes.
Then we cut to the scene where she has Elly. She's okay. You've explained the situation to me.
This one down.
That makes sense. Okay, don't worry about anything. I'll take care of it from here.
Right.
And then she does the same thing. She looks into Elly's eyes, and you get that ring, like that blue flash. And Elly's like, what was that?
And Miang's like, oh, nothing. You just have really nice looking eyes.
Yep. And then she turns around and she leaves.
And she leaves.
And then when she gets to the bridge to report to Ramsus, it's indicated there in the dialogue that she didn't even report to Ramsus that Elly had defected at all.
No, she just said, oh yeah, everything's fine.
And because he was asking her, oh, what was going on with that squabble between the two of them? But Ramsus doesn't seem to know at this point that Elly had tried to defect from Gebler. And Miang does not report that to him.
Right.
She's protecting her from that consequence for some reason.
Yes, that's very strange, very strange. And who knows why? Who knows why? Who could possibly know why? But, unless you play the game for. But that's when I think Miang brings up that, oh, the Yggdrasil's over there.
Yeah.
Right? And Ramsus is like, let's go.
Yep.
And Miang's all with it. Because before, when Ramsus had gotten word that there was what'd you call it? What'd you call it? What's the word? What did they call the red gear? That crazy red gear?
Oh, they're just calling it the red gear for now.
But it was the disaster of the continent.
The Demon of Elru.
The Demon of Elru, yes. When it was mentioned, oh, that's the Demon of Elru, and Ramsus is like, I'm going. Miang is like, I don't think you should do this, right?
Him at that time.
But at this point, and there's some more stuff revealed here later on that helped, that I kind of solidified some things I've been thinking about. But she's like, hey, we found a new Yggdrasil. Let's go. And so she's wanting him to kind of like go towards this this spot. And that guy's there, Fei's there.
Yeah.
And Ramsus is like, go there right now, like all guns, all hands on deck, go there right now. And Miang's just like chilling, standing by. So they're going. Everything seems fine, but she didn't say anything about Elly. And that is very interesting. She's got her own plans with Elly, and we kind of see what some of them are.
Yep.
Later on.
And we know that like Graf is worried about her getting involved.
Yes.
And like they have kind of that thing where
Miang is clearly operating on her own, like, I don't know what you call it. Yeah, her own goal. She's doing her own thing here, and she's not necessarily being commanded. Well, she's not being commanded by anyone that we know of at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, essentially, what the result of this is that Ramsus goes off to attack the ship, but before that, Elly left the ship in the Vierge, her gear. They show a shot of her like taken off from there.
Yeah.
So Elly was let go by Miang to go back to the Yggdrasil again.
Which I was not expecting that.
Yeah, because it's like, oh crap, how are we going to save Elly? And then she just shows up on the deck of the Thames.
And she's like, I'm tired. And it's like, and Bart sees that too. Bart is just like, hey, this isn't right. Like something weird is happening.
Right.
And do we trust her?
Well, he hasn't trusted her the whole game.
I mean, that's true.
And that's been a source of contention between him and Fei. Because Fei's like, trust her, and Margie's like, trust her. And he's like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, of course we're not going to trust her. That's stupid.
I thought that he hadn't brought that up for a while, I suppose.
Well, actually, there was... Wait, when did it happen? It was when she got taken away. So when Fei came back to Saitan, he was like, oh, Fei got taken away. He was like, really? Is it really that she got kidnapped or taken away?
Back to her hometown?
And Fei's like, hey, what do you mean by that? And then Saitan's like, stop fighting.
That's right.
And then they apologize to each other after that. And they're on the Thames again. And then Elly just literally shows up in the room. And it's just like, whoa, wait a minute. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And Bart picks up that this is suspicious again, but he doesn't, he's like, there's something about this that is wrong. And I know, like, when someone's going to betray you, there's just something that you feel, and she's not like the rough people that I've been around. It's not like that.
Yeah.
There's something different about it, but I'm telling you, like, something is not right about this, right?
Right, and nobody else notices or wants to say anything.
Then you go back to the Yggdrasil, and you're looking for her, and you could go into like the medical, the sick bay, like medical room or whatever, and they're like, oh, Elly was here, but something wasn't right, and she like left.
Yeah.
And then you go down into the engine room where she's at, and she's been hypnotized, so mind controlled or whatever, to go in there and sabotage the engine of the Yggdrasil.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly what she does. She raises all the things. I don't know if it's a nuclear thing and those are control rods or something.
Probably. That's what it looks
like. But she lifts them all up, so that way I guess it causes like a meltdown
it's like
an overheat.
A meltdown is happening. It's just too hot. They're not able to dispel, or what do you call it? Yeah, what the rods are meant to keep it cool.
The radiation.
Exactly. And
I think there's electricity though, so it may be a different thing, but
that's what it looks like.
That's basically what's happening here, yeah.
And I love that shot where Fei like runs in and is like, Elly, what are you doing? And she's just like sort of
she's like,
turns around and like, oh.
See, I thought for sure, I thought she was going to be hypnotized for a while.
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, we're not going to catch her, and she's just going to be sabotaging us for the next like 4 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
But it was like right then we show up, and we caught her in the act basically, and so then she falls down.
And kind of a funny line here. Funny might not be the right word. A weird line here. I wanted to look at what the Japanese says if we have it. But Bart is basically saying, I told you so. And he says, this maul's a mole, which I'm guessing is a way to try to play on the words. But the word maul, M-O-L-L, is not a very common word, but it's like a gangster's girlfriend, like, you know, like kind of like a doll or a prostitute or something, but of like a gangster.
Oh, really?
This mall is a mole, is what he was saying there.
Who in the world would have understood that reference?
It's a really old word, right? Like back from like, you know, when gangsters were kind of, you know, the mafia is what I'm referring to.
That makes me think that he probably used kansai, like a Japanese gangster sounding, you know, word in Japanese, and then just equated it to
so it's like a mafia term from like, I don't know, maybe like the 1930s or something. So I don't know what he was trying to translate there. I assume Bart must have had some sort of play on words or some kind of idiom or something he said in Japanese.
Yeah.
And so Honeywood was looking for something to like be an equivalent in English, and this was the closest thing you could find. But that word is very uncommon, and it's pretty insulting.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to what it was in Japanese.
I'm gonna find it. In the Japanese, he says, koitsu yappari, which means this jerk, I knew it.
Why on earth?
That's the whole line. And I was like, does he say something in the next line? No. He says, chikisho. He's just like swearing and stuff. It's like, he doesn't say anything even close to this mall's a mole. All he says is, I knew it. It says this guy, but it's girl, so this girl, I knew it. That's all he says. So this was Richard Honeywood's decision to try to inject some character into Bart that he thinks
trying
fits
to do a pun
on his own that is very...
it's weird.
Does it fit Bart's character, though? Do you think this mole's a mole? Do you think that fits Bart's character?
I don't know if 95% of the people playing the game would know what that word even meant.
No, that's crazy.
Because it's so outdated. It's so out of use.
You would assume that he had he was trying to find his best way to translate some obscure Japanese word. That's
what I
what you would
think.
assume. Not even close. He made that whole sentence up.
Okay. Good
What
job.
that sentence in English should just say is, I knew it all along, instead of this mall's a mole. Because yappari can have that context, like, oh, I knew the whole time, of course. Like, yappari would be like, as I thought, oh, so it seems, kind of thing. Nope.
All right. Well,
So,
there you go.
so fun.
Anyways, Seitan knows everything, as he usually does. He recognizes right away that this is the work of some kind of hypnosis. Not only
Yeah.
that,
Which
but
he would also say, yep, buddy, meaning, I knew it. It's hypnosis. That's what yep, buddy also means it that way.
sure.
But yes, and he has a hugely revealing line here.
Yeah.
So revealing. And I caught it, and I was so proud of myself. So he shows up, and where is he? Satan. He says, oh, if you forcibly stop the behavior, because they're saying, if you knew all along, why didn't you stop her?
Yes,
And
because he was aware that she was under
Yeah, because he was like, oh,
hypnosis.
I was following her because I thought she was acting weird. And it's like, why didn't you stop her? Oh, well, you see, if you forcibly stop the behavior while imprinting, it can cause problems, it can cause brain damage, right? Something like that.
Yep.
However, what does Satan do whenever we're having issues and moments where it seems, because I already brought up, it seems like Fei has been hypnotized. We got that cross going.
Yeah.
And it seems as though the cross of Nissan is literally playing a hypnosis on him that's leading him to do something that he doesn't want to do, that he otherwise would not do. He's under a hypnosis. And Satan, well, at least one of the times, Satan was just kind of sitting back. But I guess in that first time with Lahan, he was telling Fei, go,
Fei, don't
get
do
away
it."
from the town.
But I wonder if he was, maybe it could be interpreted that he was like trying to stop the hypnosis before it took full effect or interrupt it
Sure,
before it
because he
fully...
did not care to stop Fei from getting in the Veltal. In fact, his whole life's goal is to get Fei in the Veltal, it seems. Thinking it would be for our own good and the anima animus, connection, like, oh, there's a purpose for this. But at the same time, Fei is very aloof whenever certain things are happening. Satan is very aloof whenever certain things are happening with Fei. And it could speak to this, that if Satan can recognize hypnosis when he sees it, and we already know that Fei's being hypnotized, it follows that Satan must also know that we're being hypnotized. And for whatever reason, Satan does not want to interfere with the imprinting process.
Because it can destroy
Because it could
the
damage
mind.
the mind. So it could damage us. Maybe that's why he's doing it. He's trying to help us out. But at the same time, he knows what's going on. And
It's a good catch.
I don't know why. But for whatever reason, he does not want to. He doesn't want to tell us
Interrupt.
or anything like that. Yeah.
Interrupt someone when they're under hypnosis.
Yes.
Okay,
Very
so
revealing.
they take Elly to the medical wing. She wakes up. You go in there, and she's like, "Oh, this is my fault." She doesn't know how she got there originally.
Yeah.
But then they tell her what happened. She's like, "Oh, this is my responsibility." So when they see that Ramsus is going to attack, she's like, "Let me go fight."
Yeah.
And Bart is like, "No way."
No
And-
freaking way.
and
You're going to
she's-
sabotage us again. And she's like, no, but I won't this time. But it's like, how do you know?
And Seitan is like, "Okay, Bart, I'll try to, give you some peace of mind on this. If
Yes.
she steps out of line, I will be the one to kill her."
Myself.
Is that all cool? Is that cool with you?
Yeah, Bart's
Trust
like,
her
fine.
this one time.
Yeah.
I suspect that this was not. She is not aware of what happened to her. She did not mean to sabotage you. She's not a
Right.
mole.
She didn't mean to, but she is hypnotized, and that could wake up at any point. Like
Sure.
Bart, I think Bart's concerns are less, oh, she's evil, and more, she's under an influence of something, and
Yeah.
she's not. It's not worth it to have her around us if she could at any time do this. Now, Bart doesn't realize that he's working with Fei, who by the same token, under any moment, can all of a sudden kind of break everything, right?
Sure.
He doesn't know that about Fei yet. But he knows enough about Elly to where I would say Bart's making the right choice here.
Yeah.
Being like, hey,
Well, it's
what if something causes you to wake up again and sabotage us again? He didn't say she did it on purpose.
Well, that was kind of Fei's whole hang up the whole time too. What if this happens to me? I can't
Yes.
control it. And they're like, just
Yes.
fight anyways. He's like, but you guys, like,
I'm going to kill everyone again.
right? You can't
But
really know.
It
But
seems like So remember in The Lord of the Rings, in Two Towers, where Frodo is starting to warm up to Gollum, and Sam is not. Sam sees past it the whole way through. He's like this. He's a slinker and a stinker, and he's a dirty liar, and he can't. You can't bring someone back. He's gonna stab us in the back at some point because he's too far gone. But Frodo feels for Gollum because he's in the same situation.
He's
Frodo's
in the
also
process
losing himself
of
to the
turning
ring.
into Gollum
Yeah,
himself.
and so he just wants to like find something redeemable about Gollum because he sees himself in Gollum. And I think Fei sees himself in Elly's situation, and it's true. But at the same time, Sam's right.
Yes,
Sam was right, and in this case, Bart's right. But we'll see if Elly ever
had Sam
gets
not
hypnotized again.
traded Gollum the way he did, though, would Gollum have eventually betrayed them?
Because of the way things turn out at the end, it was probably
Sam's fault that he pushed Gollum into deciding, oh, I can't, these aren't actually my friends. Anyways, there's two ways to view that.
Based on later actions, then it could be a good thing or a bad thing. But generally speaking,
yes,
I think you see my point.
You have the cautious, rational way of being like, or way of viewing this, which appears to be a pretty good. I think I would agree with you. Bart's probably right in this circumstance.
I would think he
But
is.
Seitan knows everything and can do everything.
He knows that
and
she won't be hypnotized again.
He's going to make sure that she's not a problem, and I trust him, his competency on this account.
Everyone seems to trust Satan.
If he
quite
says
a bit.
he can handle it,
Yeah,
I
fair
would
enough.
tend to believe that he could, based on what we know about him. Based on what we know about him.
Yeah.
Okay. Ramsus attacks the ship, and he calls Fei his arch rival. And Fei's like, "What are you talking about?" And then, but he says, "What happened to your other machine?"
Yes, this is one thing that. This is the thing.
Because Miang had to identify him for him. He was like, "That's him in the black."
Yeah, in
gear.
the black gear, which
Right
is kind of
there.
bluish.
It's
but whatever.
bluish, purplish, blackish, like whatever.
And he's like, "Aha, Ungard, ye have at thee." And it's like, well, you don't even know who we are.
Yeah.
And we hardly know who you are, right?
Yes.
But he's like, "Where's your other gear, huh?" So Miang knows something that he doesn't, although he also does know it in a different way. But it seems as though Fei is the red-haired guy, like all in one, right? This is something that I was kind of warming up to our last podcast.
Yes.
Because it seems like they're starting to be more overt about it. They're starting to really, I think it was the red room thing.
Yes.
Which
When you see the red versus the green.
yeah,
tints.
and because we're editing podcasts, so we're a few weeks ahead now,
Yeah.
and so I'm starting to edit 2 weeks ago's podcast,
Yes.
and after having understood a little more context, and I saw the scene where Fei begins to lose consciousness that second time
in Ave.
in
the
Ave,
desert.
yeah, before when he's fighting, what's his name, the not smart guy. What's his name?
Vanderkom.
Yeah, with the X on his face.
Vanderkom.
Vanderkom. And it's so funny because Fei's like, oh, I can feel myself losing it. Oh, I'm losing it. Something's going on. And as he completely loses it, as it fades to black, first it fades to red. You get a red tint over everything. Then it fades to black.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then the red with the red gear. Okay, so my earlier conceptions about when Fei loses his mind to this hypnosis, thinking that it's basically this nuclear bomb, just like his machine has these arrow lasers that just like blow up and kill everything, was maybe not an accurate conception, although it was grounded in what happened at Lahan, right?
That's
But
more,
it doesn't mean
that's
that
more
happens every
the
time.
gear's ability necessarily than it is Fei's.
Yes.
But Fei can control the gear when he's...
But Fei can have the gear do other things. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be the atomic bomb every
Exactly,
time.
yes.
And so it could just be punchy fighting. It could just be like lifting up the Yggdrasil without touching it. It could be all sorts of things that the gear is capable of doing that Fei doesn't necessarily know how to do unless he's pushed to this weird brink, right?
Yeah.
As we saw in the caves and at other points. So anyways, it seems as though Fei literally becomes a different person when he's hypnotized, and that person has their own autonomy, their own movement, their own ability to do stuff, right?
Yes.
So the red gear is Fei. And there's so many hints before that, but it just didn't seem plausible.
There's so many hints about so many things that it is hard on a first playthrough to keep it all straight and to put them together in the moment.
Absolutely.
And that's what's been so illuminating on a second playthrough is that it feels, I've said it a bunch of times.
Right, it feels obvious.
It feels so obvious, but it isn't. Obviously, it's not.
It's nowhere close to obvious.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, sure, this hint means this thing. But it's like, yeah, but there's like 50 other hints that mean 50 other things in the same like scene. So how am I supposed to like keep all of this? If I knew what was noise and what to filter out and just focus on the signal of this is what this means, fine, but I don't know to do that yet because I don't know where it's going. So I'm assuming all of these little tangents are subplots that could potentially lead into a thing, but it's like, no, they're just like they're red herrings. They're just like little things that are meant to, and I think in part the reason everything has like 5 different names in this game is in part to throw you off. There's different names for the things. There's the Solarians, or the Gazelle, or the Able, or the, it's like they're
shepherds.
All the shepherds, and then wasn't there like a German, oh no, that's the school that they go to.
Eugen.
But it's all referring to the same thing, but they're using these different words.
Yeah.
And Satan has different names, and everyone's got like everything's like a little bit different in different ways.
Josiah and Jesse, who we'll meet in a second.
Exactly. Anyways, so it seems as though, because this is the first time I think in this podcast that we've established this, that the red gear and the crazy red-haired guy is Fei, and what happens when Fei loses his mind is that he becomes this. Does he have a name?
Well, we'll find out later what the name of the Red Warrior is. We don't know the name of the Red Warrior.
He's a thing. He becomes the Red Warrior, and then that's the whole point, right? But he just doesn't get what's happening here. So I guess since he's not the Red Warrior at the moment, then Ramsus sees this as his opportunity to like capture him and imprison him or something like that.
Well, remember
or
back when he fought him, when Ramsus fought Fei the first time back in Ep.11, he was like, he looks different, but that's the same technique.
Ep.11, yes, right? When we first fought him.
Why does he look different?
And you see that flash there. I didn't know what that meant before.
The Red Warrior flashes on top of Fei.
And I was also thinking, because there were other reasons why I missed it, but I was also thinking, just because you remind someone doesn't mean, like, he could have been his dad. It could have been a technique from his kung fu teacher, or they both had the same teacher. So, like, it didn't have to be that he was that person, because they don't look at all alike. And that's probably, to this point right now, that is probably my biggest gripe with this. They don't look the same. They should look the same, but they don't. And so that's...
Hold on to that to when you get a really clear look at the Red Warrior's, like, portrait. When you see his face up close.
Okay.
But I mean, at a glance, obviously he's got red hair that doesn't look the same.
And it's like Super Saiyan. It's like...
Yeah.
But anyways, so Ramsus finally sees him, wants to pick him up, and Miang is not holding him back this time, meaning Miang knows, first off, who he is, even though he looks different, but second off, that he's not as big of a threat right now.
Yes. So but it's funny though that Miang has to point him out.
Like, I know that's weird.
That's the guy you're looking for.
That's the gear. That's the guy.
That's the black gear. He's in that one, and he's like, okay, that's him. All right, so what happened to that other gear?
Yes, exactly. What happened to the other gear you're using? And that's my
Fei
question.
Does not know what he's talking about.
What happened? Okay, but even knowing what he's talking about, what? Okay. There's another gear somewhere. Like, that's weird. Yeah, and it's a red gear, and it's totally different.
We'll get an answer to that, but at the moment we don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But you fight him, and you beat him, but before beating him, again, winning the game, losing the cutscene, he goes crazy on Fei's gear and beats it up, and it forms a breach in the armor, and the seawater starts getting in, and it's drowning Fei in the cockpit, and Elly uses her air rods to like...
Is this the first time we've seen her use those?
Well, she used them in a battle against us.
I thought so.
When we first fought her.
But Ramsus, was it Ramsus? Someone was very surprised that she could do that.
Her own Gebler pilots that she was commanding in her unit, they were surprised she could use air rods.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh my gosh, only elements level people can do that.
So it's like they don't know she's an element or
They didn't know before.
I thought
because she's really
would think
young.
that would be, they would all know who the special people are.
Well, she's 18 years old, and they didn't realize that she was in the element program or consideration for elements or whatever.
So
it's a little bit unclear.
Ramsus seemed surprised too, though. That she was
it's a little bit
capable of that.
unclear to me because that's what I believed. I thought that Elly was not actually an element, but that she was like part of the program or in consideration. But the way that Miang and Dominia refer to her in this playthrough we did now, they were acting as if she is an element. They refer to her as an element. So maybe I just don't remember the details on that, but it doesn't seem like she was, because she was some lower level commander who was like leading these Gebler pilots. She didn't seem to be in contact with Dominia often, who is currently an element. So it seemed like she's not.
Yeah, you would think
an
that
element.
the elements would know each other pretty well.
Right, because they'd be working together currently.
Yeah,
They'd be in the same unit or same team or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Elly is clearly not a part of that team, so I don't know why they're calling her an element. That part of the game is foggy to me.
Do you become powerful and then you're called an element, or do you become an element and then you are imbued with a power?
I don't know.
Because I don't know either, but it seems like if she's not an element, then it would seem like you have the power first, and then the appointment to element comes secondary.
She at least has the same potential as an element, which is what allows her to be as powerful as she is when she's under the influence of drive,
right?
And what allows her to use these air rods.
Okay.
But I don't. My memory is foggy on why Elly is not part of the current members of the elements if she was at the same level as them. I don't remember.
It seems like Ramsus is surprised, though, that she can use air rods, right? Am I right in assuming that?
I don't remember that. I'll have to check the tape.
Or maybe he was just upset because he was like on the verge. He was
he's like,
about to kill Fei, and then all of a sudden,
you.
but it seemed to me like he was maybe surprised. Like, I didn't know you could do that, but I could be wrong. It could just be that he was so mad, and he's like, because his what is it? He ran out of not fuel. Was it fuel or oxygen? He ran out of something where he's like, I gotta surface. I can't stay down here.
They had to retreat, and Fei is getting drowned inside of the cockpit. She uses the air rods. And so he leaves. She picks him up, takes him up, and he's unconscious. So you're aboard the Thames again, and you're in the sick bay, and they're like talking about, the doctor's like, oh, there's nothing I can do. He's in this coma. You'd have to take him to the Ethos headquarters, which is close by. They might be able to diagnose this correctly.
But you can't. They won't help anyone who's not like part of their group.
The Ethos. So you have to get permission.
Yeah.
And they have what's called an E-tone, which is one of the Ethos members coming to the Thames. He's like, maybe you can ask this E-tone if he'll try and get a word in for you. But it's like, okay. So Bart and Elly go to meet this E-tone and come to the deck. And this part confused me a little bit.
Yes, it confused me too.
It seems like these are Thames crew members who are threatening to kidnap and sell this little girl into slavery or something.
Is slavery just a thing on the Thames? Like it's okay to do that?
No. This is why because this is not something a man of the sea would do.
Not even close.
This is not part of the code of the men of the sea.
Was it a woman who was threatening to sell her?
I thought it was two men.
Oh, it could have been.
Two men, and they were bullying this little girl, and they're threatening, to kidnap her and sell her. And I was like, are these like traders who are currently docked at the Thames? Yeah. Doing like, trading or something with the Thames, and they're pirates or something, and they're going to go off. Are these
just
crew
kidnapping people while they're there?
They can't possibly be crew members of the Thames
I wouldn't think so.
That's not how the captain runs things.
Right.
So I was confused as to who these people were.
Yeah, that's very strange.
So I'm in my head canon for now. I'm just saying these are just people who docked with the Thames to do some trading or something like that.
And slavery is legal wherever they're from.
Slave traders.
That they will openly just kidnap people.
So, anyways, in the middle of this, Elly runs in to help this girl and Bart too. And they're like, oh, you think you're tough? Like, you're going to fight me? And then you hear some gunshots, and these dudes take off and run away. Yeah. And this is where we're introduced to Josiah, or Jesse, who is this girl's father. And he thinks Elly is doing something suspicious, so he goes and puts his gun up to her head, like, don't move.
He's like, you're a Solarian. I know she's a Solarian.
And Seitan comes running in. He knows, of course, who it is. Oh.
He knows his name. He knows everything about him. They're best friends.
in some sense, they really were. So,
Well, I have a guess.
what's your guess?
Was Jesse an element?
Yes.
Okay, that's my guess. It seems that way because he's got very good ability of something, and they're like super good pals with
Yes, and
Sigmund.
he and Sigmund and
Yes.
and Josiah kind of palling
So we got
together.
3 of them.
On the gun room of the Thames later on. But
Oh,
yes,
and then Ramsus was the 4th. Right?
Ramsus
so
was
we
the
got all
4th.
4 former.
So those are the former elements
elements.
members. Correct. So, anyways, Primera is his daughter, and I wanted to just kind of point at this. She doesn't speak.
Yes, she doesn't. Yeah.
Now, they
ever
do-
since her mother died, right? She
Right.
hasn't said
They
a word.
explain it, but there was
Yeah.
also another character in the game. Do you remember who does not speak? Just putting this out there. Seitan's daughter also doesn't speak.
Seitan has a daughter.
Seitan has a daughter.
I forgot. I know he had a wife. His wife
So
was a good
his wife
cook.
is Yuri, and he has a little girl named Midori. And
Oh, Midori, because that
Yeah.
means green in Japanese.
yeah, and Faye would try to talk to her. Hey, Midori, you want to go outside and play? And she'd always just dot 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 dot. She never speaks.
Wait, Seitan was an element. His kid can't speak. Josiah was an element. His kid can't speak.
I'm not commenting on the reason why. I'm just saying that
Those
this is
injections.
the second character.
It's the injections, Dan.
The second character we've come across in the game, a little girl who can't talk.
Okay, quick addendum here. It was the wrong way to put it, to say that Midori and Primera can't speak. It's not that they cannot speak. It's not like they're incapable. They're not mute. They just don't speak. So just want to clarify that it's not that she's incapable of speaking, not that she can't speak, but she just doesn't speak.
Well, that is very interesting.
And
I
both of these
forgot
people
Satan
are-
even had a kid.
Connected to those who were connected to Solaris.
To Solaris.
Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Just keep it in mind as we keep playing the game.
Okay.
So, anyways, Seitan runs in to explain the situation to everybody. And Jesse, or he gets confused. Seitan seems to get confused because he's like, is this the same kid from before? Then he's like, that's my freaking son, and he's 16 years old now, you
he's
jerk.
like, you jerk. And Satan's like, oh, of course. And how's your wife doing? She's dead. He's like, oh, I see.
It's like, Seitan's like, oh, crap. like-
Satan's losing his cool factor.
yes, exactly.
He's like, oh.
And so Jesse has 2 children, Billy, who's 16 years old, and he's the E-tone that
Yes.
the doctor was talking about.
Yes.
He's the one connected with the Ethos. Then Primera, his daughter, little girl. So Billy then kind of comes on the scene, and they're asking, hey, our friend Faye, he needs help. Would you help us out? And he's like, well, at first he's like a little wary, but I really like the way that they have the dialogue between Jesse and Billy. It feels very convincing and natural for this father-son in a very obviously conflicted, intense relationship.
Yeah.
Because, I noticed this too with just like other people I know who have bad relationships with their parents or something. I'll kind of observe the way they talk to each other. And where it would usually be very normal for someone to just walk up and be like, hey, I know Seitan, you can trust these people. Why won't you help them out? Give them a chance. I think you can trust these people.
Right.
That would be the normal thing for the father to say to the son.
Yes.
In this case, Jesse goes, well, just help him, why won't you? A very irritated, condescending way of saying it.
Right.
That is so indicative and true of these types of relationships that are tense.
Yeah.
It's just at any moment they can kind of explode, and they always talk to each other like that. It's very sharp and demeaning, and they do it back and forth to each other. And when I'm watching, like when I speak to either party in these situations in life, they're always totally reasonable people.
Yes,
and
that
I
is
can
true.
talk to them, and they'll talk to me very respectfully.
Yes.
But whenever they talk to each other, it's just so obvious that if you talk like that, it's going to cause a problem. Why are you doing that? But there's so many intricacies, so many micro offenses that go back
They
many
pick up-
years.
I was going to bring that up. It's the culmination of just decades of issues, and it's almost as if every time they talk, they never resolve their arguments, which means that every time they talk, there's the history of every argument they've ever had.
Yes.
That is like hidden behind every word they say has some dual meaning based on an argument they had 12 years ago that never got resolved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how they talk to each other. And it's very like true to life.
Just continuing the argument.
It's just like there's no reason why you should have said it like that.
Yeah.
But that's just how they talk because they have a very complicated, tense relationship that is all this unresolved tension in there.
Yes.
So anyways, Billy does decide to, he said, I can't make any guarantees, but, I'll see what I can do.
Right.
We'll take Fei with us and we'll head to the Ethos headquarters.
Okay, I'm going to put a light spoiler warning here because this is an area that if you're exploring the Akavi region, you're probably going to come across. But Kaysen, I kind of turn it over to him so that he can speculate on some things that he was predicting very early on in the playthrough, in like episode 2 of the podcast. So if you don't want to hear that speculation or where he's going with that, and you're very sensitive to spoilers, please click on the time code that appears here on the screen. Anyways, just want to be safe with that, just to make sure that if you're super sensitive that we're not stepping on your toes there.
Now, don't look at my notes here. I just wanted to know if you came across one of the locations there in that little archipelago. It's a big...
Babel.
Did you find
yes,
it?
I did.
Okay.
And you can't go in it. It like shocks you, and it's like...
Okay, so you did try to enter the Babel Tower.
I went to several places first. There was like a locked storage place. They were like, go away. And then I went to the orphanage first, and they were like, there's nothing to do here. And then I found that tower, and I was like, this is pretty sweet. And then you see it, and the camera kind of like pans around a little, and just going all the way up.
I wanted to see what you thought of that when you came across it.
I thought it was the remains of a ship that I have seen before, because, and this is so funny. I made some comments in episode 1.
Yes, this is precisely why I wanted to bring it up.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, I can't believe how right I ended up being. That's not even what I was referring to.
That was...
Without that tower being there, I still felt that the tower analogy fit the ship in a different way. And then I see the tower, and I'm like, it's a literal tower. It's literally called the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
So great. But I recognized it right away.
Yeah, you called that one, and that was perhaps the most astute prediction I've ever seen anyone make playing Xenogears for the first time. It was incredible.
But I wasn't even referring... I was just saying the ship was such a massive ship that it gave some Tower of Babel type imagery, and that they were trying to subdue God, and that's the Tower of Babel story.
Right.
For whatever reason, and I literally started laughing as soon as because it took me a minute. I was like, how did they build this or whatever? And I just thought it through, and I'm like, all of this is old technology, and this is, oh my gosh, I just couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's pretty cool.
That is the hull of the Eldridge.
That's
when
wild.
It crashed.
That's wild.
They sort of made a
erected
tower out of it.
Yeah.
And it is literally the Tower of Babel, which is pretty crazy.
I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
I will probably put some kind of spoiler warning on that, just in case people haven't put those pieces together yet.
Okay.
Because Tower of Babel will become like a dungeon we're going to do later. And maybe that's a more appropriate time to bring it up. But I just wanted to ask you, because it's there, if you came across it and what you were thinking.
I did some exploration. I didn't do much. Cause I don't know the extents of where, because my guess is I could have just gone anywhere. And I was like, okay, this opens up the whole world as soon as you're in the Yggdrasil in the water. Yeah. But I was like, I'll just see what's around here immediately, and then go to the Ethos.
So, yeah. You follow Billy to the Ethos headquarters. He's able to get permission to go to a very specific portion of the sort of cathedral place that they have there, so that they can, work on Fei there. And you can go around talking to some people while you're there, and there's some really interesting dialogue you can get from some of the NPCs here.
In the cathedral?
In the Ethos headquarters, as you run around. Because there's a time where they're like, okay, we're gonna work on him for a bit, and Ellie's like, I'd like to stay behind, and you can kind of go explore a little bit with Seitan and Bart. You just talk to people until Elly comes and finds you and brings you back, and they're like,
Yeah,
he's going to recover.
I was
it's gonna be
wondering
okay."
what to do. I was trying to prompt.
Yeah,
that
what
cutscene.
actually...
I was like, did
Yeah.
I not do the right? So I went back and visited all the rooms again, and she still wasn't.
Yeah, and I kind of like that they push you to do this because some of the NPC dialogue here is very good.
Yeah.
One of them tells a story of the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, in a different way though. It's not the story.
It's a little bit different, but there's actually
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 different accounts from different NPCs talking about Tower of Babel,
Oh,
which
yeah.
makes sense since we're in the area of the Tower of Babel.
Sure.
At this point.
Yeah. The Akavi. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Akavi region. So there's like a kid in Billy's orphanage who has you read a book, then you open it up and it's
Yes.
like Tower of Babel stuff.
Yes, that was.
And
I
then
read that
there's
one too.
2 NPCs in the Ethos headquarters who refer to this Tower of Babel. But also, you can actually talk to, I forget his name, Bishop Stone, I think, before you know who he is. So Bishop Stone is the one who sort of ended up raising Billy and bringing him into the Ethos. But he's in there before you meet him officially, Bishop Stone. And he has a line of dialogue where he says, "There are too many wells. What are they thinking?"
I have a Japanese translation for that.
Yeah, what did you say?
Okay, he doesn't say they. And this may be true in other places. No, it means the same thing. But the word they're using is up.
Oh, really?
It's ue. Yeah, so he says, and it's right here. He says, he doesn't say they. He says, here, I rephrased it here. What are they thinking is, what is the above thinking? Or what are the above thinking? So in the quotes, it's not they, it's up, it's above.
Interesting.
So what are they thinking referencing up? Now, if you read that in the Japanese, now we already know about the Solarians, but you read that in the Japanese, you would think he was referring to the heavens, to God.
sure.
What do they think of the angels? Something like that. But with the translation of they into English, you don't get that at all.
And we've
it's
also-
clearly referring to some jerk people.
But we're starting to learn about Shavat a little bit more.
Yes,
And it's revealed that these reapers, as Billy refers to them, but what are called wells,
I have
come from
translation there
Shavat,
too.
is
Yes,
what
that's right.
what they're saying.
That's right. The wells come from Shavat, because this is the
So-
first we've heard of them. So he's
Right.
referring to Shavat when he says they.
Yeah, so there's another NPC that says, "Reapers are humans turned into things by God to pay for their crimes. They're sealed in the cursed land of the heavens, Shavat." And then another person here, they say Babel Tower is connected to Shavat. The exit is under close watch by our people. In spite of that, cursed reapers continue to appear in this land. That's why the Etone are here to eliminate them. And then there's another NPC that talks about how the Etones are kind of like the sword and shield of the Ethos.
Yeah,
Right?
yep.
So Etones are not just like priests. They're also like warrior priests.
They have, this specific one, Billy,
Yeah.
he has like guns. Yeah, he's a gunslinger.
Yeah, exactly.
And his dad was, it seems, as well.
So he kind of learned it from his dad.
Yeah.
The art of gunslinging or whatever you want to call it.
Reminds me a little bit
But
of...
he kind of uses that as an Etone, right?
yeah.
So, anyways, a lot of good dialogue from those people.
There is.
The land is being sort of overrun by these wells or reapers, which are attached to this Shavat country that is another floating city, continent, whatever.
Yep.
And that is somehow connected to this Tower of Babel thing,
Yep.
according to the Ethos.
As Elly says, it's always floating at the same elevation all the time. I wonder if that is the elevation of that
the
tower.
tower,
So
where it
it's
could-
just like they just dock, and then that's why they're always at that elevation.
Yep.
That would make
connect
sense.
and then leave and connect
Yeah.
and leave. And anyways, we're talking about this all being ancient technology that they're excavating, right?
Oh yeah, one of the priests mentions that. He says, we priests are here to help people. And then it says, like there's a hyphen. It says, to help people and to revive ancient technology.
Yeah, both things.
As if it's like, I think you might be focusing on the latter a little more than the former, but that's fine.
But
fine.
at the same time, there are a lot of refugees there in the headquarters,
tons. And the
too.
orphanages. The orphanage is run by the Ethos. It's got the symbol. I actually wanted to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some of the symbols.
The Ethos symbol.
Yeah, there's a few things here. Because I noticed, because you got Nissan, has the Nissan cross, right?
Yeah.
You don't think much of it. It's a cross. It's, but it's got some extra things on it that symbolizes light or a source of some emittance, something's emitting. So it's like a light or a sun. That would be a traditional depiction of the sun would be like a cross with another kind of smaller cross in it, to the side.
Sure.
So that way it's just beams of light. And there is some sun imagery that motif kind of shows within the cathedral. If you go up on that, the causeway, the little walkway thing, and you can see.
Yeah, I got a shot of
Really,
that.
really cool. But you see the cross, and it's just a normal cross with the sun in the middle, which is the source, the emittance, right? And then inside of that, you have their actual symbol, but they lose some of the symmetry. I mean, it's bilaterally symmetric, but it's not quadrilaterally symmetric.
Yes.
Is that the word?
I know what you mean.
So it's a cross, but at the top it comes out on the end, and it just by looking at it, it looks like the horns of an animal or something like that.
Like a ram or
Yeah, like a ram, like the curved, or like a bighorn sheep or something like that.
Yeah.
And the curved horns there. And because if it was a bull, they'd be curved up. And I
Sure.
think that was actually an old alchemic symbol, had something like that with like wings and some other stuff. But because the cross is often used within alchemy, I mean, it's just a basic geometric shape. But they lose the quadrilateral symmetry.
Yeah.
And but in doing so, there has to be a purpose for it, right? So that top of it has to mean something like specific that the rest of the cross itself doesn't say. And I don't know what that is, but I'm just kind of pointing out just what the symbolism seems to be saying. It's telling a story in and of itself.
Sure.
So is Nissan's. It seems to be just the radiance or something. And then this one's telling us something else. And it kind of looks like devil horns, and I hope that's not where they go with this. But it's possible. It could be. Also looks like the typical Skyrim helmet from, from like the early one you get.
Yeah.
Whatever animal that came from. But this symbol is pretty cool, and it's all over the place. But that's probably the best view you get. It's at the top of that cathedral. And then there's a bunch of candles. I counted, there's like 3 candles, then 2 and 2, and then 12. And I don't know if there's significance to this, but there's 3 candles in the middle, and then there's 4 on each side, I believe. And then there's 12. Because when we talked to the retrograde amnesia guys, he had mentioned that in Fei's dream with the desert, there were specifically 12 people that were walking in the desert in one of his dreams that he saw going. And then there's a set of 12 candles at the Ethos place here. So I feel like there's some symbolism there too, because the numbers always mean something. The number 3 means something, the number 12 always means something. And then 7, the 3 with the 4 on the sides is 7. So you got 3, 7, and then 12. That's like, and then altogether, what is that, 21? I don't think 21 means much. No, that's wrong.
It's 3 touchdowns.
19. It's what?
3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns. That's what it means. But 19 doesn't really mean much. But you got some symbolic numbers here. So I feel like we're going to start seeing what the meaning of that kind of stuff means as we go here. You also have the symbolism of the inner court versus the outer court in the ancient Jewish temples, where the common folk, the unwashed masses, the unanointed, the uninitiated, they stay outside.
Yeah, because you have that whole barrier.
It's a gate. It's like a prison gate.
Yeah.
There's like bars, and then it's like, and people can come in if you're part of the priesthood or if you've been invited, which we were, right? But it's not just like shut off, like don't come in here. It's like we don't trust you to not come in here. We're forcing it shut and locking it.
Yeah.
Like that's a different kind of thing than I think the Jewish temple had going. But that is kind of the general idea. It's a separation, which can lead to bad things, I guess, if it goes too long. The people feel separated. If you don't have a way for the uninitiated to become initiated, then it will lead to people
corruption.
It leads to corruption,
mistrust.
and then people not trusting you. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
So anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to mention there. Also, the word, this is great. The word for wells. So I was like, what is this? I don't know what it means. I believe is it German?
Well,
well means world.
Well is part of that.
And Welt means world.
Yeah.
But well
alone without the T.
Yeah, it's just it seems weird. It's kind of a weird word. The word in Japanese, I mentioned this in Nier a lot, but it's the same kind of thing here. The word in Japanese is not as cool, I guess. The word is shirio. And if you know, shirio just means it's the kanji for death and then the kanji for spirit. So it's just it's a ghost, basically.
Like
it means
reaper.
like a death spirit, a dead spirit. It's just a ghost.
Like a reaper.
But here's the other thing. The word for reaper, same word, shirio.
So they're using the same word.
They use the same word for both. Although there was a time where they said Shiryo and then in quotes said Werusu, and then they kind of did a katakana thing there.
Yeah.
And I didn't check if they say Ripaz as well in a different context, but the kanji they're using are the exact same. It's just the kanji for ghost and Shiryo.
Well, there you go.
So
of all the things to prep to talk about in these podcasts, you can't ever think of every single thing. I have not looked into what the significance of the word well is. That'll be something that I will think about maybe for the next one.
Okay.
Or whenever it becomes more pertinent to the story, when we need to know. The last part here is visiting Billy's orphanage. There's some cool little things you can get in here too. Did you bring Rico with you to Billy's orphanage or no?
I believe he was in my party. It would have been. Yeah.
So there is a boy inside Billy's orphanage.
Yes, I did, because I know what you're talking about. Rico was in my party. Incidentally, not like I did it on purpose, but he was in my party.
You get extra dialogue if Rico's with you.
Okay.
Because,
yeah.
Well, I guess Seitan could have been with you, but there's a couple of things that can happen.
I think it was me, Seitan, and Rico. I think it was the
So
three.
if you go into
Elly.
Billy's orphanage and you talk to Billy right away,
yeah,
it triggers a cutscene where Jesse comes in and Sigurd comes in, and Seitan and Sigurd and Jesse all go, okay, let's go back and have some drinks, and they all leave, and it forces Bart into the party. So, anyways...
We're talking about something that I didn't think we were talking about. I didn't realize we were talking about this. I thought you were asking if Rico was in my party because of the orphanage.
Yes, I am getting to that.
Oh.
So what I'm saying is that who is in your party can be affected by whether or not you talk to Billy first or not.
I don't
so
remember.
So if you had not talked to Billy first, you could have Seitan and Rico in your party when you talk to the kid. My whole point is if Rico is there, you get extra dialogue.
Okay, cool.
But when I played, Seitan was not in the party because Seitan left with Jesse and Sigurd
before
to go.
you explored.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
I see. Good to know.
Anyways, so while Jesse takes Sigurd and Seitan back to the ship to, tell stories, old war stories or whatever, and pal around and drink.
So funny.
You can go into that room with the kid who has a bell, and he rings that bell.
Yeah.
And it's the same bell that you used, the same bell sound that you used to draw Redrum in to fight you, or Redrum in to fight you in the sewers of Nortune, of D-Block. He then reveals that, the Ethos, kind of like was taking care of him or whatever. I'll put the exact words on the screen.
Well, he says his dad wanders and forgets things just like he does. They're two peas in a pod. But he said that his dad went to go find the Ethos for something, and then just never came back.
And never came back.
And what he says, 'cause I looked this up in Japanese too. He says, "Well, what is it? Shikata ga nai," which is like, what can you do? Like he must have gotten lost. That silly guy.
Yeah.
But
then you have the bell that his father would have had, because they had matching bells. And he's like, wait, where did you get that?
Yeah.
And this is where Rico realizes that was this kid's dad that we fought in the sewers of...
Yeah. And so when Satan was like, we give him a proper burial because he was technically human in some way, right?
I'll take you back to what the NPC said in the Ethos headquarters. Reapers are humans.
Yes.
Turned into things by God to pay for their crimes.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't made that connection. In fact, that was before I had left, though, to go to the orphanage. So that makes sense. So it says that he went to the Ethos, and I did kind of connect, like, okay, the Ethos may have had something to do with turning him into the Redrum.
Yeah, the monster.
But I didn't know it was that explicit, and they say that he must have committed a crime.
Well, but they connect this to
God
Shavad,
was the one that did
God
this.
does this to humans,
Yeah,
so Reapers are humans.
It means that they found some crazy technology that makes people crazy, and they think it's from the gods, and they use it to punish people in order to... That's the part I don't know, the last part. I don't know why they're doing it, but they're doing it. Does this... So I also gathered that is what the Reapers are, so it seems like they created the Reapers?
Well, they're connecting it to Shavat somehow. So they say they're sealed in the cursed land of the heavens, Shavat. But all he says really is that reapers are humans turned into things by God to pay for their crimes.
So these people get cursed, and then they go to live with Shavat in the peoples of Shavat.
But also,
it seems.
Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. But then, remember, Bishop Stone had said, there are too many wells. What are they thinking? The above, what are they thinking?
Shavat. So what's Shavat thinking?
Why are there so many wells down here?
They shouldn't be down here. Why are they sending their wells here?
Why are we being overrun by wells?
Yeah.
Because the Etones are fighting them, right? That's what Billy is sent to do in this last, where we left off in the play session, was we go to this ship where wells had overrun our ship. Yeah. And so wells are humans that have been transformed into these reapers, right? And the Etones are fighting them, and this is a connection to Shavat somehow.
Yeah.
And this kid's dad was turned into a well and then found its way, for whatever reason, into the D-block sewers, but was not attacking us. It did not even approach us until we used the bell. Which means that's my son.
It thought it was his kid.
He thought it was his son.
Yeah.
And
we had the bell, and he was like, how'd you get my son's bell?
Yes.
That's why he would fight us, because he would think that we killed his son and took his bell.
With whatever intelligence was left, right? Because that's what Seitan mentions.
Yeah.
There was a semblance of intelligence left. So with whatever was left of it, it knew its son's bell sound and went toward it, but then found these imposters, and then what is it going to, it's still in like a monster, half human, half monster state mentally, its reaction to that. So anyways, we killed this kid's dad.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And anyways, what you bring, this was, two things I wanted to point out about Primera. She doesn't speak. Right. However, there's two instances, this is one, and then there was the one earlier with Jesse, where they show her like approaching or facing somebody, going ... and then that person just kind of knows what
yes, I remember that.
Is almost like telepathic.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that I looked into was, I might be wrong on my assumption here, that Primera has this telepathic ability. It really seemed like that to me, the way that the scenes play it out. But like on the Xenosaga wiki, it doesn't mention that she has that power. So maybe that's not the case here. Maybe it's just that she's stepping up and Jesse is reading an expression on her face and knows what she means. Maybe there's not some kind of telepathic ability going on here. It just came across that way to me in these two scenes, and so, I kind of assumed maybe a similar thing was going on here. But anyways, what I'm saying here about Prim might not actually be correct.
Jesse was giving Elly a really hard time or whatever, and then Primera gets in the way and looks at him and says nothing and goes, all right, she was trying to help, I get it, and he backs off.
Right.
So it was like Primera stopped him from being aggressive towards Elly, like told him to back off, but without saying anything. Here, she's in that room with the boy, and as the boy is upset, like my father, he'll never come back.
He's pretty upset.
He's all mad that his father abandoned him.
Yeah.
But then Primera kind of steps up and ... and then he goes, but thank you for bringing my bell back to me. This makes me feel better.
I thought that was a weird change, but I didn't realize the connection with Primera at all.
Yeah, because she's there, and she'll just kind of step in every once in a while, not say anything, but people will change their temperament all
Interesting. That's very interesting.
So something's going on with her. So anyways, you go back and forth between the Yggdrasil and the Orphanage. You see Sigurd and Seitan like struggling to entertain Jesse, who's just
He's crazy. He's just walking back and forth between the two, just laughing.
And keeps him drinking or whatever. And Sigurd doesn't drink. He can't hold his liquor well, and so he.
But he does
faints.
take a few, and he faints.
But then you go back to the Orphanage again, and Billy tells you about his background. He tells you about how, his dad left when he was a little kid.
Yeah, and then the guy, the priest, bishop,
saved them from Wells, who came and killed their mother.
You kind of see the whole story too.
Yeah, and then eventually Billy's dad comes back, but he doesn't really recognize him. His personality is grating.
Yeah.
He had been by Bishop Stone sort of reared into the ethos now. He has a lot of faith. His father exhibits no faith.
Well, however, it is heavily implied that his father used to also be an ethos, work for the ethos in some way, be a priest or an etone or something like that. That the Jesse was a man of faith, very much involved with the ethos before. But I don't know. I don't know if the implications are that he was a priest or not, but he, at the very least, was very much involved with the ethos. And then after he left for however long,
Gebler and Ethos are working together, sort of. It's like, I guess Ethos is not necessarily working with Gebler, but Ethos is excavating technology and giving them to either Ave or Kislev to use in their war against each other. Yeah. They're sort of manipulating the balance of power there in the same way that Gebler is also doing that. Right, they're all trying to keep that war going and keep the sides balanced.
Yep. The equilibrium.
Right. So, anyways, you get a nice little scene there between Billy and Jesse when he comes back from drinking and it's late at night. He says, "You're gonna wake the children." And he's like, "You're too freaking, you're too uptight. You got to quit that job. You got to stop being a priest. I'm telling you."
And that's what Jesse always tells Billy, is stop being a priest. In fact, no. Jesse is actively fighting against the ethos, like all the time. In fact, there was a moment at the cathedral where somebody walks up to Billy and was like,
"Your dad's at
your
it
dad
again."
like bombed some place and is like trying to kill people again." And Billy's like, "Dang it, can't my dad realize that I want to be a priest and that he's ruining it for me," basically.
Yeah.
And then Jesse comes in. He's like, "You got to quit your job." And Billy fights him really hard. He's just like, "Don't say my mom's name. Don't like.
I don't
you're
even
not
believe
my real
you're
dad."
my dad.
Yeah. And then in the end, Jesse's like, "Fine, I'm a total stranger, but take it from me. Quit your job. You don't know what you're getting
You
into."
have no idea who you're involved with.
But Jesse, by the same token, Jesse won't tell Billy anything of the secrets that he knows. He's just drunk and saying, "Quit your job," but he won't say anything.
Probably is because he knows Billy won't believe him anyways.
Maybe that's a good point, actually.
Billy wants nothing to do with him. Why would he trust what Jesse has to say about the ethos? Why, instead of Bishop Stone, who's like his actual father figure,
right? Who appears to be more like that. Yeah.
So, anyways, good scene there. I liked that a lot. But eventually, Bishop Stone comes to the orphanage, and all the kids are like, "Yay, Bishop Stone!" And he tells him, "Hey, there's a ship nearby," and this is something Sigurd had picked up on like sonar or something. It's a ship that's been overrun by whales. Will you go take care of it? Because it's your job as an Etone, right? So he's like, "Okay, I'll go." And Elly and Bart are like, "Let us go with you." And he's like, "No, this has nothing to do with you." And he's like, "Yeah, just let us help you." And you end up talking to him a little bit again, and he divulges some more information about how, for a while, he was considering selling his body to like take care of his sister.
Yeah, they got into some specifics that made me think that he did.
Well, he said he almost came to that.
Are you sure? Because I swear he said no. At first he said I almost did that, and then Bart is like, "What? That's crazy!" And he's like, "Well, I mean, for what was it, 3,000
he's like,
gold
they were going to offer me. It was very tempting. Here, I'll look it up.
Something for me showed to me that he was like, "Yeah, I ended up doing this." Like I was like, I even thought about this, and then I did it a few times, right?
Okay,
almost sold your body is what he says at first. Okay. Almost sold your body, and then
despite that, Prim still prefers the father she never knew, the one who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Almost sold your body, don't you know, kid? There's things you can get back once sold, and there are things you just can't. Bart's pissed. Couldn't you see that? Of course I refrained, but they said they'd give me 3,000 for one night.
Then you're right.
Fool.
You fool.
Listen, next time you and your sister need help, you come to my ship.
I refrained. That's the line that I didn't quite. Okay, you're right.
So, anyways, he almost
got
to that level, but this is when Bishop Stone stepped in and helped out.
Yeah.
But anyways, you learn more about Billy's backstory, and you get the tutorial on how his guns work and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Billy. He's a cool character. We'll probably talk more about him in future episodes because we don't know him super well yet. But we know a little bit of his backstory at this point. But you go with him to that ship, And this is kind of where we decided to leave off. So I basically got up all the way to the point where right before you fight the boss. And I saved. But,
Ooh. I didn't get nearly that far.
okay. So did you just go to the first save point?
Yeah, I just went to the first
It's
in
not-
that room, you turn on the light, and
It's,
then...
I'm not that much further ahead.
Oh, okay.
It's like, it's a short dungeon.
Oh,
So
cool. Well, good.
You'll climb a couple ladders and do some things, and then
Okay.
you'll be basically, it's like maybe 5 minutes apart.
Oh, wow.
So it's really close. But that's where we left off for this week. So that's the end of today's podcast.
Ooh, sick.
I will leave again in the pinned comment where to play up to for the next episode, because I've not determined that yet. Because we're trying to determine, can we squeeze in a little more in each playthrough so that we can finish this in 15 to 16 episodes
Instead
of
of 20
or 22.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to determine that, but there will be some points where, because right now, in the midst of the plot, things are moving faster and there's not like a ton to break down necessarily in terms of the philosophical references.
Yeah, there's less of that.
And religious references.
Yeah.
It's more just kind of, analyzing scene by scene, how we like this and that. So this is moving a little faster in the middle section of the story, but as we get towards the end of Disc 1, it's going to start getting really heavy with the referential material again. So those we'll have to take more time on. So I will, I'll see what I can do to squeeze a little bit more game into each episode so we can get through this in the next 5 or 6 episodes.
Cool.
But otherwise, right now, we're pretty much at about the halfway point of the game.
Sick.
So we're on the back half of the story now. And things are going to start getting really crazy.
Sick.
Really crazy soon. I mean, it's going to get
Can't wait.
absolutely wild. I'm very excited. But until next week, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you again soon. Peace out.